It's a Friday evening. I have a nearly empty glass of Pepsi Max, so I think it's time to take you through my latest purchases from CPC, which includes some new tools for the layout, some general purpose tools like the screwdriver and snips there, but also it's time to do a bit of a review slash test slash first time use of the Duratool hot wire foam cutting kit, along with some notices. Welcome to my channel, Highbrook End Model Railway. So the notices which I mention include the fact that I have a sore throat, so if you do see me taking swigs of drink throughout the video, that's why, because my throat feels like the Sahara Desert. And also, the last one is to say that there is no live stream this Saturday. There will not be live stream on Saturday, the 11th of June, because I'm going to a friend's house for the afternoon at the exact same time I'd be setting up the stream, and I won't be coming back until late at night. So, yeah, stream's cancelled for this Saturday. Sorry about that, but at least you have got this video today. So, first video after my week off, so I think we should just jump straight in to what I've bought. So, we have got 3 products here. These are not actual products that I've bought. So, all this up here is the Duratool hot wire foam cutter kit. We'll get on to that in a minute. A silver line screwdriver and some Duratool side snips because my other one's broke. So basically CPC, which is logo like that, if you've never heard of CPC before, it's like an online retailer that sells anything, you know, hand tools, cookers, fridges, power tools, hand tools like this here, wire, solder. It literally sells anything DIY you could possibly think of, and it's actually quite cheap. So the cost of the screwdriver, the snips, and the foam cutter kit came, and I have to look on the back of the sheet because that's where my address is and I don't want you to see it, came to £21.88 for all of that, which didn't include delivery. Now I do recommend, if you do order from CPC, if you, without tax, because it does add tax on separately, which is kind of how the Americans do it, but if the total of your items you've got in your basket comes to £17 before tax is applied, then it does mean you get postage free. So instead of having to pay £5 for a handling charge and, you know, making it more expensive than it needed to be, I simply bought this silver line flared screwdriver for something like, well, not something like, for £1.29, and that meant I didn't have to pay £5 for delivery. So it's always useful when you're ordering with CPC, if you're just a couple of pounds off the £17 mark without tax, and then what you can do is you can simply buy something small and cheap like this to bring it up to the £17, and then you're not forking out £5 for postage. So yeah, fairly simple, silver line 5x75 metre flared slotted screwdriver, nice grip, and it's not too stubby. Some screwdrivers are really stubby, so it's literally just that, this length here, be including the handle and the blade, which I don't like. So screwdriver, already used that a little bit already, that can go over there. Side snips, you've seen me using these before. I had some blue ones off eBay, and they've gone straight on the floor. I had some blue ones off eBay, but while I was fitting my controllers to my controller drawer, the screws I was using were a bit too thick, and I didn't have any others, which meant I had to notch out some plastic from the controller so they could clip together. So I broke the blades off them, unfortunately. But yeah, Duratool snips, not bad. We're not really going to be testing these today. They feel okay in the hands, they're nice and comfortable. 2 component handles, and I'll try not to abuse them. I had a tendency with my old snips to really abuse them, where I've got some big, like, lineman cutters, 1000-volt rated ones that got really thick blades, so probably should use these for small stuff. We will do a quick test. I say we'll see if it'll snap these off alright. Quite not too thick cable. Yeah, that's fine. They definitely work. So we can move the side cutters out of the way. I'm going to bring the wire back in though, because we will be using that later. And now we get on to the hot wire foam cutting kit. We will be doing some foam cutting, not a lot because it's getting a bit late, to be honest, and if it cuts foam then it does its job. But we are going to do a little bit of tests using the multimeter on this, and also find out if this really is an 8-watt set. So the solid is an 8-watt set. You get all these accessories. You get the AC adapter, you get the actual body itself with a really nice switch, not a flimsy switch, it's got a nice tactile thing to it. You've got a engraver slash soldering iron tip, On the instructions, this also, you know, shows the back of like a TV remote opening or some circuitry, and they're using it to solder. Well, I think this is also an engraver tip as well. This is just a general cutting tool. This just gets hot. I guess it's just for slicing through stuff. And then this is the actual hot wire. Don't know if you can see that wire. But that's the actual wire there that you can use for cutting, and that's the replacement wire. Pleased to see that you do actually get quite a lot for that. And then a stand, which is virtually useless and flimsy, but it does sort of stay on there. So if you would like to order any of these parts, this is not sponsored, by the way. The part numbers are, for the foam cutter kit, it is TL19865. For the side snips, these ones here, it is TL21090. And if you want to buy the screwdriver, it is TL18406. Not sponsored, just thought if any one of you needs a hot wire foam cutting kit, then that's what you can do. So, first of all, this adapter claims to be 5 volts at 1.5 amps, 7 watts. And I'll check that with the calculator. So 5 volts DC times 1.5 is obviously 7.5 watts. So that's fine, but we will be doing some more testing with that. So I'll plug this in, switch it on, and luckily the lead does just reach nicely, and then this one does plug into here. So we'll check the voltage on this, just because might as well be thorough. So multimeter, turn it on so you can see it, set to 20 volts. We'll check that, and we're getting 5.13 volts. That's fine. So that does suggest it is a regulated supply. If it was a non-regulated supply, then we probably would see, this wire's going to keep slipping away from me, then we probably would see the voltage a lot higher than 5 volts, because when you put a load in, it will drop down. So the fact that it's 5 volts without a load does seem to suggest that it is a regulated supply, which is good. So that's 5 volts. Now we will show you the actual thing itself. So inside there, I don't know if you can see, I'll see if I can make you see. Down there we have got some connections which are quite deeply shrouded. These prongs do have to go a fair long way into there, so it's not like you can stick your fingers in there, but again, it's only 5 volts. You could put it in your mouth and it wouldn't hurt. Not that I'm suggesting to put it in your mouth. Switch, which I've already mentioned, and the receptacle for the jack that goes straight in. Turn that off now. So we will plug it in, but we're not going to connect anything to it just yet, because I'm going to do another check just to see if we are getting the voltage through. After a lot of faffing, we've still got 5 volts, so no significant voltage drop along the wires there, which is good. So now we'll do some resistance checks on the heating elements to see if it is actually a 7.5 watt load that will be on it. So on the soldering iron / engraver tip, you can't actually see that, can you? Soldering iron / engraver tip, we have, actually get a good connection, we can have 4.7 volts, 4.7 ohms I should say. So voltage is current by resistance, which means current equals voltage divided by resistance. So 5.13 volts divided by 4.7 ohms equals a current of 1.09 amps. Times that by the supply voltage, because power is voltage times current, we get 5.59 volts, 5.59 watts, I should say. So yeah, not quite 7.5 watts there. Maybe some of the other elements will give us a better result. So moving on to the general straight cutting one, we have 2.2 ohms. So if we do the same again, 5.13 volts divided by, what was it? Best be thorough. 2.2 divided by 2.2 ohms equals a current of 2.33 amps times the supply voltage at 5.13, and we get 12 actually. So I presume what will happen there is, as that element heats up, the resistance will drop, meaning that it will get to, it will actually probably come down from the 12 watts when cold. The starting power, it'll probably reduce, because the resistance of a wire increases as the temperature increases. So I imagine when that's cold, it will be a full 12 watts, but then it'll quickly drop to 7.5 or 8, as advertised, when it's got a bit warm. But we will test these again later. This one is at 4.1 ohms. So again, 5.13 divided by 4.1 ohms times by the supply voltage of 5.13, and that's 6.41. So the only one that's coming above the rating, or close to the rating really, is this one, followed by that one, and then this one, yeah, not really. So, yep, not brilliant, but I just hope that that one doesn't overload the power supply. It shouldn't do. I'll tell you what I will do, actually. I'll heat all these up for, say, 10 seconds, and then we'll measure the resistance again and see if it's got any closer or any higher. It shouldn't have done. So we'll start by turning that one off. We will turn this the right way around, because it does have a little indexing thing there that you have to put in the right way around. So we'll put that in the right way around, push it in, turn it on, and see if it can melt some solder. Where's my solder? There it is. Oh yeah, that's definitely getting warm. That's getting very hot. So yeah, the stand, it's not really that good, but it kind of works, I guess. So we'll see if this actually can be used as a soldering iron, or whether it's just an engraver. Oh, I can see some smoke, which will be the flux coming out. Oh yeah, it's melted solder, look. See, we've got a tiny little blob of solder on the end of it. So yeah, it can melt solder, just very slowly. Can it unsolder something from a circuit board? No. So that's not useful as a soldering iron, despite on the instructions it's been displayed that it could be used as a soldering iron. So yeah, it does melt solder, but it's got nowhere near enough thermal mass to be able to do even the most basic of solder joints. Now quickly, before it cools down, we will measure the resistance again now that it's heated up, and see what the power it is roughly when warm, although it will be cooling down as we speak. Now we're at 2.1 ohms. I think it was 2.2, was it before? Oh no, that's 12.5 watts. Tell you what, let's plug it in again, give it a chance to heat up, and then see what happens, because that plug says it's only a 7.5 watt plug, so if it's overloading it, that's not very good. Unless the voltage drops, but I've no way of measuring that. Yeah. So, give it time to heat up, and then quickly measure the resistance. Oh yeah, look, 6.1, 6.2, 6.1. Now, if I do leave this on long enough, you should be able to see it dropping, and you can actually see it dropping there. Yep, so it's definitely dropping there, as you can see, as it's cooling down. So if we do that again, 5.13 divided by 6.1 ohms times 5.13, the supply voltage, that's 4.3 watts. So, yeah, definitely not the 7.5 watts supplied, about 12 watts heating up from cold. And as you can see there, that's continuing to drop. So we'll quickly rifle through the other elements, because I'm not going to do that test on all of them. I might do. We will plug this one in. I'll leave the switch turned on. It's not like it's going to shock me or anything. So we'll plug that one in now. So that should be heating up. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's hot already. The soldering iron, supposed soldering iron attachment, I could actually hold my hand on it while it heated up, but as soon as I put my finger on it, then it was like instantly hot. So we'll get some polystyrene, and we'll see what it can do. I'll move the meter out of the way for now, but I'll keep it on because we will test that again later. So there's the meter. Will it slice through polystyrene? Let's get some cable up here. Quite a thick chunk is this, but we'll see what it can do. Would you look at that? Oh, crikey, it's fallen. It's fallen on the blade. That's gone straight through. I wasn't forcing it, I was letting the tool do the work. And that, if I drop the exposure, was the sort of cut it produced. A little bit ridged, but nonetheless very smooth and very clean. Let's try again. Raise the exposure back up. We'll try and do another slice now to push it in. It is producing a plasticky smell, but it's not producing fumes, which is very good in a confined space. It went a bit wonky that time, but very, very clean. Not as ridged that time, so that's good. Let's try a longitudinal cut, taking it off like a bit like a potato peeler. So the cutting speed, as you can see there, is not great, but the tool is certainly going through it with relative ease is making a bit of a noise. I can force it, but then as you can see the blade does start to bend. So yeah, the cutting capacity seems okay. Even a relatively thick bit of foam, like this one, you know, you could actually stab it all the way through. So that's pretty much its maximum limit, is that bit of foam, because then it just stabs into the top when you go through. So yeah, come on, cable's letting me down here. So yeah, that does actually seem alright. So it's managed that with relative ease. Oh yeah, so that went straight through. So this seems perfectly adequate, because the sort of stuff I'm going to be cutting is going to be nowhere near as thick as this. Probably less than a centimetre thick I'll be using to craft my holes. Let's take a slice. Yeah, no noticeable fumes. There is a smell though, which would suggest maybe some invisible fumes. Oh, I can see some fumes now. So maybe I shall keep my loft flap open and run my little desk fan I have up here to stop myself getting intoxicated. And obviously not be up here for ages. So that's done a piece like that. Will it knife through a wedge like this? This is all from our kitchen, by the way. All our appliances. Swamping out a little bit on camera, but never mind. Better way to do it might be to stand it up like that. I'm not going for any neatness here at all. I'm just going for slicing through it. Has that worked? Yeah, that's worked fine. Now I want to do a little bit of a burn test. So if we just leave this on here, does it burn the plastic? If I just leave it in there. No, it actually just seems to cut through it. Unless I just balance it like that. Say we got distracted. Didn't realise we were still cutting, which you shouldn't do when using hot tools. But no, doesn't seem to have burned it, so that seems absolutely adequate. Tell you what I'll do. I'll lower the exposure and do a cut. Might be able to see the blade a little bit better this time. Of course, I wouldn't cut hills like this. I'm just doing it to quickly knife through some bits. Very nice, clean, shiny cut. Take that out and quickly measure the resistance. Quickly, because that will cool down relatively quickly. Contacts aren't hot, so that's good. So there we're at 4.6 ohms, and as you can see, that's dropping, or was dropping anyway. Supply voltage is 5.7 watts, but to be fair, it doesn't really matter. It was probably just an estimate for this, which I'm expecting to be the hottest one, which we're still pushing now. It managed to keep its, I guess, it's got enough thermal mass to make it through a relatively thick piece of polystyrene, although the blade is very thin, so it's not like it's cutting a lot. And that has actually cooled down already, so that's very good. It means I can just knock off the isolator switch and then leave the loft, because that has cooled down very quickly. And that is pretty much room temperature now as well. So we'll click you on. Oh, it's already on. Is it hot? Yep, that's hot. And let's try knifing through a bit like this. Definitely a lot slower because of how thick the cutting element is. But that seems okay. Oh dear. Now that has pulled out strands of polystyrene, which the other one didn't. So if I get a thicker bit, I don't want it pulling out strands all over the loft. It's bad enough with hot glue. So if we try it again with this piece, tilt it like that so you can see it better. Let's see. Cutting time definitely feels a little bit slower than the hot wire cutter. Yeah, definitely is. And it's slowed down now. Must have lost some thermal mass because it's cutting a lot wider path than the wire. I am proper ramming it in now. Maybe if I carry on moving it up and down the element, that might help. So that's come off. That's fine. Definitely not as good as the wire cutter, I'd say. It has sort of produced a lot of strands. Again, I'll drop the exposure. It has sort of produced a lot of strands on the edges. You might just be able to see some there. Yeah, has produced quite a few strands. I don't know if you can see that. I think you saw a few. But yeah, so cut is still very, very clean and very shiny, but it has left these long strands of stuff, which isn't as good. Yeah, so just about made that. Wouldn't recommend using that one. It seems very slow because, well, it just is. It loses more thermal mass because it's bigger and it's cutting a bigger path. Definitely not as fast or as quick or as clean as the hot wire. And yeah, just generally seems a bit useless as that. So yeah, definitely it's one of them packs where you buy it for the tool and only one of the attachment is useful. That's useless for soldering, hasn't got enough thermal mass. And this here, it's just far too thick and it's not got enough power being pumped into it for it to actually be useful. If they probably did pump some more power into it, this plastic thing will probably melt because I can feel that that's quite warm already. So yeah, that was the Duratool hot wire foam cutting kit. That was a brief look at some new tools that are coming to, well, I say the layout, more like the servicing bench. Do I recommend it? Certainly. I do think that, you know, at least the hot wire part is useful. This part is pretty much useless, and the soldering iron tip is just a non-starter. I mean, I suppose you could do engraving with it, but for what I'm going to be doing, I'm not going to be using the engraving. And really, if the only time I would even attempt to use this is if my other soldering iron broke and I wanted to try and mend it with using this as a makeshift soldering iron. So yep, only one of the tip really seems to work effectively, and that's the hot wire that's installed now. That switch is turned off, by the way. But I cannot talk and do because I've put that in the wrong way. But yeah, certainly seems worth it. I do recommend it. Only around £13 was that entire kit, and then you get the transformer / wall adapter, you get the unit, and you get 3 tips. You might, I don't know, if you like wood burning, making figures in wood, you might actually be able to, you know, sort of engrave letters into wood, or I don't know, something that doesn't involve model railways but does involve DIY. So yep, that was the hot wire foam cutter from CPC, well, from Duratool, bought via CPC. So I hope you've enjoyed this video, a little bit of a relaxed one on a Friday evening. Done a little bit of maths, done a little bit of electronic measuring with the good old Mercury MTM01, if you want to know what meter I use. Yeah, enjoyed that. Going to be a good little tool is that. Very fast heat up time, and it does also cool down nice and quickly as well. So that's definitely safe to just switch it off, unplug and leave the room. It's not going to burn anything after that. Thank you for watching, and I hope you found it useful. Take care. See you soon, folks. Bye for now.